It's Rachel again from CCYJ, and I'm just super excited to be able to introduce to you Heather. Just that she was willing and able to join us today to share her perspective on what's happening around the state right now, particularly around kids seeing their parents and parents seeing their kids, especially during this international pandemic, how important it is for our system impacted kids to be able to be connected with their families and families be connected to their kids. So Heather, thank you. I just want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and share your experience about working with parents and youth in the foster care system.
Okay, well, thank you. So the experience that I bring to the table here in this situation is I've been involved with the child welfare system with my family 3 times. And my kids were placed in foster care and in family placement. So I have a couple different experiences with that, where some where I felt really supported and others where I haven't. And that doesn't necessarily mean that just because they were placed with my family, I felt like I had the support and access that I desired. So I think where I kind of get left behind or just fall away from having a similar experience is that I've never been through something like this while my kids were in care. There was no pandemic going on or crisis except for my own that I needed to resolve, and that felt really powerless just over my own issues that I needed to resolve. So I can't imagine the panic and the fear and the pain that parents are experiencing right now, except for that from what they share with me as I sit and walk alongside them in their journeys. And that's really what I do now through local, statewide, national, and international venues. I work with parents and help translate experience over social classes in child welfare.
So you said something that resonates for me is like what you hear from parents. So we're in this trench between keeping kids and families and social workers and foster parents and parents safe from a pandemic, right? Something that we've never experienced, any of us really, in a lifetime. And then yet the importance, empirical importance for families to be connected. There are legal questions and in terms of fulfilling orders in place for visitation, right? And then not everyone having access to technology. It's not like immediately we can turn on a phone or a computer. There's so many people without these resources to be able to move to a different means of having visitation, if that's even appropriate. And then how do you have appropriate and meaningful visitation, right? If you had a 2-hour, 3 times a week visitation with your infant toddler, that's not going to look like 2 hours of screen time 3 times a week, right? That's not appropriate or meaningful for a baby. But for a parent, it's a different perspective when they get to see their child. And then social workers used to be doing this, and now foster parents might be called upon to do this. So this is a trench we're in, and we're working really quickly to try and identify solutions. But what are you hearing from the parents? What are they saying to you about the impact and what they're dealing with?
Well, parents are scared. They're worried about their kids. They don't know what their kids are going through. I mean, there's families out there who have their elderly relatives in nursing homes, and they can't see those relatives. But imagine if you didn't even know what nursing home your relative was in, and you just had no contact at all to even be able to check in and get an answer that you felt was valid, about where your kids were or how they were doing, what kind of practices that this home was adopting and keeping them safe. And by the way, why can't they come home? I feel like parents, they're powerless over just the whole situation. I mean, and all of us are powerless, right? But this really brings it to the forefront, and of how powerless it is. But they've been halted in all of their efforts of being good enough to get their case, get their kids back. And the only progress that they're able to make in moving their case forward, because progress equals being good enough in the child welfare system, and they can't engage in services. So a lot of my parents are confused of why their kids can't come home, and just the uncertainty and panic of not having basic needs met, and the isolation. This system is already isolating. So to bring in a pandemic like this, where we're ordered to shelter in place and isolate ourselves, it's really hard for them to be stuck in their head of the reality of this, and find that support and the healthy coping skills that are often new to parents that they're practicing, to rely on. It's been really hard, and there's this ethical dilemma that we face, with providing services and giving the support that we know the parents need and deserve and we want to give them, but also keeping ourselves socially isolated, and practicing distancing and all of that we've been ordered to do, that we need to do to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple things that I've heard some heartbreaking stories too about parents that were on the verge of reunifying with their kids, but maybe was pending a home study by the social worker, but now because of the pandemic, the social worker can't come in, or had finally come through and stabilized in their lives, and then now have lost their jobs, right, which was part of their case plan, and they're all set to reunify. And I'm curious, given sort of the level of complexities and uncertainty that you're hearing from the parents you're connected with, what do you think would make a meaningful difference right now? Or what things have happened so far that you think might be valuable for us to even consider putting in place as we discover how we're going to even come through this pandemic?
So I know it's a really vulnerable place to just admit that you don't know the answer and you don't know what's going to happen, and you have people asking you questions that you don't know. We don't know the answers. So self-compassion, compassion to others, really, no one has been through this before, so we don't know, how to handle it. And everybody is, a lot of people are trying to find creative solutions, but they're coming from a place of panic. So the creative solutions aren't always readily coming and available. So just hearing each other and being with each other and being generous about our assumptions of where an answer is coming from, or a behavior, or a response. Being curious about that, I think, is really practicing, like that urge to avoid using cynicism as a tool to cope, because people are really, really sensitive to cynicism right now, and it just further disconnects us and is counterproductive to what we want to do here. But it's so hard because we're all scared and we don't know what to do, and sometimes that's just the effect. Things that I've noticed is just people, service providers, outreach workers, and community really stepping up to say, what do you need? I have access, I can help. Really getting creative in the ways that we find the money to get the technological goods. Our network administrator here on the east side of the mountains, they sent out a survey surveying all of their visit providers. They're using their visit providers as resources and a hub to not only communicate with the foster placements, and anyone who they have a referral with, and and then the youth that are placed with them and the parents, so that they can assess technological needs, and then find the money or the means to get that. I've heard of things like using concrete goods, uh, and resetting the limit. Like, you've never used concrete goods before. Here's this much money that you have, and I will help you get a phone and data, and kind of letting the visitation agencies and contractors have some autonomy over being resources of liaison like communication, and for disseminating equipment, coordinating, modifying visit frequency and length, just being able to work with parents to coach them, to be support to them on different ways of creative ways of having these visits, and entertaining or just narrating what their kids are doing, because that's all they can do, because their kids are too young, or the only, I think, age group right now that wants a 2-hour visit is a teenager. And they're the only ones that hold attention on the phone for that long. So we have to get really creative. One office is having one staff member based into their office, and they're emailing what they need printed, and then that office person, the parents can just call, and the office person will run things out to them, like having things mailed. There's so many different ways that we just have to get creative in times like these to keep families connected, because my baby just needs to hear my voice. It doesn't matter, and that's meaningful enough. Even if I call my infant and read the same story for 5 minutes every night, that is going to give me that sense of, okay, I'm doing something. It's going to give me the hope, to keep moving forward. That's the pathway I need to build hope, to hold on to the goals that I have in a crisis like this.
Yeah, and knowing that your baby is safe and okay.
And that I'm supported.
And that you're supported. Yeah.
Right, that my connection and my contact with my child is important. Yes. It's important enough to bend, the policies and get creative, because I have people rooting for me. And they've got resources I don't, but they're giving them to me so that I can be empowered, and meet my goals.
So great. I can't thank you enough for sharing your perspective, your voice with us. And our intention is to elevate this issue so more people know about it and contribute to the resources that are necessary to get into the hands of families as soon as possible. Is there anything else that you want to say?
I'm very grateful to be able to serve families and sit next to parents. They're absolutely amazing, even when they're angry, because I know that their anger is so close to hope, and there's barriers in their pathways to their goals that is very frustrating. And anger is the right response. It's just, and I think if we all just show compassion and empathy and assume the best, then we can move past the anger and the cynicism and come together, because we're all in this together.
Yes, we are. Well, thank you again, and we'll make sure that our conversation gets out as far as it can go, so people are aware and can make a difference and bring compassion to our families. Thanks again.